Hi, this is Andy. As we often say on the podcast, I've never run into someone who, let's say elementary school, who said, Mommy, someday I want to be a project manager. Often it works out that we're a good individual contributor. So good that we're tapped to lead some initiative. And regardless of whether we have the title or not, we almost accidentally become project managers. So let's say you're on that track and now the boss tells you she wants you to help take the organization to the next level with projects. There are too many missed deadlines, she says, too many budget overruns. She thinks the answer is to start a PMO, and the boss thinks you're the one to lead the charge. So maybe that sounds exciting to you, or perhaps it feels intimidating, or in your case, maybe you've been down that road before and you've got the battle scars to show for it. But for most people in this situation, any excitement at such an assignment can quickly turn to anxiety and frustration as you face the challenges of changing how an organization delivers initiatives. If only there was a roadmap to help you. If only there was a seasoned voice who could guide you with the mindset and the steps to follow when you're in that situation. Well, I'm glad to tell you that roadmap and guide, they do exist. And that's what we're talking about today. Laura Barnard joins me to talk about her new book, The Impact Engine: Accelerating Strategy Delivery for PMO and Transformation Leaders. It's the book that Laura wishes she had when she was first in this situation, and I can totally relate to that as well. In today's episode, you'll learn what it was like for Laura to build her first PMO. She'll introduce you to the Impact Engine system and how it can help you accelerate business value and deliver sustainable change. And speaking of change, Laura will talk about the importance of change management and how principles from it can accelerate your success. And before we're done, you'll learn more about how Laura has navigated her career to this point and stays committed to personal development. It's a fun discussion with someone who cares deeply about the world of people and projects, and I can't wait to share this discussion with you. Hey, quick note, I want to invite you to join our Lead 52 family. It's a global group of leaders who are committed to transforming our ability to lead and deliver. It's 52 weeks of leadership learning delivered right to your inbox, taking less than 5 minutes a week, and it's all for free. Learn more and sign up at getlead52.com. Thanks. Let's jump into our discussion with Laura about her new book, The Impact Engine. So, Laura, thank you for joining us on the People and Projects podcast.
Oh, Andy, it's so good to see you again. It's been a while since we were in the same place at the same time. So it's so wonderful to see your lovely face. And thank you so much for having me here.
I still remember that time where we had dinner together and we had the session together. And I'm just amazed that it's taken this long to actually get you on the podcast. That's all on me. So I'm so glad we had this opportunity. And, I think you can relate to what I talked about in the intro, right? A scenario where someone's tasked by their boss to create a PMO. So how long ago was it for you when you were in those shoes? And what was it like for you to build your first PMO?
Oh, wow. So I like to say that I'm older than I look, and I look pretty young, but I don't know. Oh, you talked about those battle scars. I feel like I have a few too many of those as well from doing this work, but that's why I do what I do now, is so that I can help others have it easier than I did. But I built my first PMO in 1999 in the middle of the dot-com insanity, if you'll recall that. Some of us are old enough to remember that well. And I was a senior project manager and was asked to manage what I now know to be a PMO, but I didn't actually know that's what it was back then. I just knew, hey, Tag, you're it. You're the one that's going to have to help us figure out how to get these projects done faster and better, was, I think, what I was told specifically by our CEO. And I said, okay, well, let me just start asking a bunch of questions, because I know how I do it for my projects, but now I'm being asked to do it for this entire organization. So it was a little intimidating at first, but I was probably too young to know any better. So I just to know what was ahead of me and how hard it was going to be. But actually, I think it was pretty easy back then, because you couldn't just Google how to set up a PMO and get 8 million results like you can today. And so then it was just all based on asking really good questions and looking at what made sense, right? What makes sense here, and how do I help the people? So I actually had to talk to the people that needed help and figure out what they needed. So it was fun, but it was a pretty steep learning curve.
Yeah. Well, you talk in the book about how typical advice leads to typical results. And so what are some typical mistakes that people make when, because common sense isn't all that common sometimes. So what are some typical mistakes that people make when they're trying to stand up a new PMO?
Yeah. So what I found in my career is that early I didn't have all of the advice bombarding me from all over the place like we have today. But over time, as I figured out this thing I was doing was called building PMOs, I started to research. I started to read more books. I started to take classes. And what I found was the more that I was applying what my classes and the books, you remember those big, heavy, this is what good looks like in PMOs and project management. And you could like hit someone over the head with it and poof, now you're a PMO leader. And what I found is that that was actually leading to a lot of resistance in my organization because I said, okay, well, this is what good looks like. And the more I applied this is what a good PMO looks like, what I found was that it was a lot of templates and tools and process and stuff and more metrics. And no, you can't just measure 3 things. You got to measure 83 things, and your dashboards and reports need to be 65 pages long. And it just seemed to be so much stuff that I was getting overwhelmed and bombarded with all these things I was supposed to be doing. And my teams were really struggling to keep up with the processness of all the things they had to create. And what was happening is that we started hitting more and more resistance from our stakeholders. So what we were told good look like, we still hear a lot of today. You must have all of these templates. You must have all of this process. You must check every single box every single time you do something. And what I found is that, like you said, it's not necessarily applying common sense. And what we say, and what I found to be my key to success, was turning common sense into common practice. Mm-hmm. Let's do what makes sense here, the way it makes sense to do it for these projects, for this situation, for this PMO that we're setting up. And the more I learned to go back to what worked so well for me in the beginning, which was asking good questions, figuring out what business problems we're actually trying to solve, the more successful I was. But that's the typical advice doesn't say that. Even still today, Andy, we hear a lot of people say good looks like lots of stuff, a lot of outputs and deliverables, not necessarily the outcomes the business leaders are looking for.
Yeah, I never know what numbers to believe as far as how long a PMO tends to live before it dies. Yeah. And so are there any numbers that you hear? Because I think that's probably driven heavily by people just coming up with templates and processes.
Yeah. So, it depends on where you look. We did a bunch of research, and actually it was interesting. There wasn't as much recent research from like the 2020s and plus as there was way back when, because I think sadly what's happened is that people have given up with trying to measure what success looks like for PMOs because they're changing so much, or we can't be a PMO, we have to be an agile management office, or we can't call it this, we have to call it transformation, or no, we don't even do projects, we only do products. And I'm like, well, the change that happens to those products is called projects, but whatever. So I think what's happening is a lot of people are just really like, it depends on the industry, but generally in like as early as a couple of years, and maybe even faster now, about half of PMOs are failing. It used to be there was like after 5 years, and then after 3 years, and then after 2 years. Every time you look, what we see and what we hear is that many executives have just given up on the concept of PMO altogether. And that's why things like the agile movement and this shift to an agile management office or product instead of project has taken hold, is that people are looking for another answer to solve the same problem. But what they're finding is the problems still exist because the underlying root causes haven't been addressed. And so I don't care what you call it. I care about the outcomes it's driving to accelerate the delivery of the organization's strategy. And that really gets to why I wrote the book, is that I feel like we have to, and I've been working on this for, I don't know, at least a decade now, shift the way people think about PMO and what it's there to solve. And maybe put the keys to what you name it in the hands of the leadership team that actually is able to articulate the problem they need solved and is looking for someone to help them.
I have no doubt, Laura, that if someone followed the blueprint in your book, that the last thing they need to be worried about is, will we last a couple of years? Because just too often you just see the people doing it the typical way, and so. I feel like the heart of your book in many respects is the impact engine, right? Something you've been honing and developing for so long. And so people need to read the book to fully understand the impact engine, but how do you like to at least introduce it so people can get a sense of what they would get in the book?
Sure, absolutely. So the impact engine system is this model that we've created, which is the what to do, in what order, why it matters, how to do it, and how to not lose your sanity in the process. It's something that we've created, our system, our approach, is something that I started building when I was learning all of these mistakes, learning things the hard way in the shoes of the PMO leader, business transformation leader, and even all the way up to an executive inside organizations first. And then when I started my company, part of the reason I started my company 11 years ago now was because I was finding that now what I took for granted, I was like, oh, no, you don't do this, you do this. And that's why. And I started talking to other PMO leaders, and I was being asked to speak about PMOs on stages. And I thought, well, what do I know? But then I would talk to these folks and realize, oh, they don't know what I already learned. I need to help them so that they can have an easier path than I had. And so what happened is I found myself saying these words so often that it hit me that I had to do something about it. And I would say, I wish I had me when I was you. I wish I had somebody that would say, don't do this instead. Here's why that traditional thinking will get you the typical results, which are not that great, and what you should do instead. So out of that came, and my friend Kendall Lott that I talk about in the book, and he's always got these great Kendallisms. He said, you need to figure out how to document and explain to others the system you use, because you do it again and again and again. And what you create is very different. I've used it to stand up the PMO for our nonprofit organization, that we run, Project Management for Change. I've used it for different companies across different industries. I was working in different industries, and there's a way that works, and you still will create something very custom and unique to the business problems you have to solve in your organization. But we have found the magic framework, if you will, that actually works every single time, 100% of the time. If you do it, it works. Yeah. And it starts, and the reason it's so successful, I think, is that if you look at the picture, the graphics we have in the book, there's a gear that is the central theme of this whole operating model. And inside that central gear is mindset. And so a lot of what we teach first is that you have to shift the way you think about the work you do and how you do it, and really become what we call the strategy navigator for the organization, which is solving business problems, not just project problems. And so we take them through a different model and a way to look. It's not just about the templates, tools, and process that you're creating. It's about the business problems you're solving. And so we kind of elevate the thinking and the way that the PMO, or if you call it a transformation group or whatever you call it, some of our clients call it a strategy delivery office. If you come up and out of just the project execution stage and look at how you can support the entire strategy lifecycle and better set projects up for success before they ever start, you will be far more successful in project execution. And that will actually lead to better strategy realization, because the projects were set up from the start before the projects ever kicked off, meaning things like we don't have 100 number one priority projects, right? We actually prioritize, we align with strategy, we do all of those things that should be happening but maybe aren't. And then we get a much higher return, whatever that return looks like, for investment from that effort. So the entire strategy life cycle is better off, the company's better off, the results are better off, and they have no choice but invite you into the strategic business conversations, because you are the central gear that drives the organization's strategy delivery. So that is the core, is the mindset. And then there's a framework that we guide you through that goes through assess, define, plan, deliver, and evolve. And each of those stages are something that you go through every 90 days. So it's an iterative approach to continuous value delivery for the organization in how you, as your PMO, whether you're PMO of 1 or of 300, like some of our clients, it's about ensuring that you are continuously providing value to the organization in a sustainable and measurable way, and that you're always evolving to meet the next business need as it unravels, which as soon as you solve one problem, another one's going to appear, right? But it's making sure that you're solving the right problems, the root causes to those problems, not bouncing around trying to put Band-Aids on a bunch of symptoms. We want you to get to the right root cause first, and then it makes all the rest of the work so easy.
Yeah. I like that you don't even just describe it, Laura, but you even get prescriptive enough of, hey, on your first trip around, 1 week for this, 2 weeks
Yes.
for this, 3 weeks for this, and the focus on a minimum viable product. Like, don't try to get it perfect. Deliver value. I mean, if someone is friendly to Agile, they're going to love this. And even if they, but you don't have to. You don't have to be a capital A Agilist anyway, right? But it is an incremental way to deliver value. And when our listeners hear, Laura, you say it works every time, it's just because of the way the process works. You're focusing on their problems and you're getting what they think. And so we'll talk more about it. But once again, I think the chapters around just I mean, it is the heart of the book, but even the chapter on the mindset is worth the price of the book, actually, of to think differently. And also another underlying theme throughout the book that I couldn't miss was the importance of change management. And so what are some of the myths about change that I think could be holding people back, and why is change management just so fundamentally important for us?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So there's a thread of organizational change management running throughout the whole book. And it's woven into everything we teach, because you're not doing this change on your own. Anything you create is in service of the broader organization and the people in it. Therefore, you need to know how to bring people with you through change. And so I have seen time and time again, there's so much out there, Andy, on people are so resistant to change, and you need to work on all these selling techniques, and you've got to spend all this time and energy, convincing, cajoling, begging, pleading, selling, and all that. I think if anybody has ever told you that you need to sell the value of the PMO, you're doing it wrong. Right. And you should never have to sell the value. You should be able to show the value, and you be valuable if you want to be seen as valuable, period. Right. Get the results. Don't just talk about it. And that's why you can't spend so much time shoving a bunch of templates, tools, and process at people, which, Andy, by the way, and I promise I'll answer your question, but I have to say this. I have never met an executive who has said, wait, hold on. Can you come back when you have 5 more templates for me to fill out? It's not that you don't have them. It's not that you don't need them. And even in the book, I say, we will even talk templates, but not yet. Right. And so it's a shift in how you think about what you need to do and how you take the people on the journey. Because so many people, Andy, think that people are naturally resistant to change. I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Oh, yeah. Constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone will nod their head. Oh, yes, of course, Laura,
yes.
Of course.
Right. And you and I, when we first met, we were both speaking at a conference, right? We met as speakers. And I can go on any stage and say, raise your hand if you think people are naturally resistant to change, even in your organization, or especially in your organization. And everybody's hands go up. And, so I'll take them through a journey. And I want to take your listeners through a journey here and just think about it. Think about, and this is what I'll usually say. So if you've mentally raised your hand as you're listening to this, that yes, definitely the people in my organization are resistant to change. I want you to put your hand down if you've ever met anyone that has, let's say, gotten married. Pretty darn big change, right? Right. Let's say on purpose. They actually got married on purpose. They did that change to themselves, right? Or they had children. On purpose. They did that change to themselves, or they changed jobs, or they started a new hobby, or they tried a new restaurant, or they took a different route to work. The thing is, Andy, is that people are not actually resistant to change. They are resistant to having change done to them.
That's it.
And so many times, especially in the PMO space and with project management, we're so busy pushing and forcing change on people instead of going and standing beside them, holding their hand and going on the journey with them. I mean, think about it, Andy. If you were facing the other way and somebody yanks your hand, what is your human instinct going to tell you to do?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Pull it back. Right.
Right. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. So because you don't know where they're taking you. And even if it's to pull you out of the road because you're about to get run over by a car, you're not going to know it because your instincts will kick in and you will resist. However, if somebody says, hey, Andy, come with me so you don't get run over by a car. Let me come help you get out of the road. Let me carry your bag for you. Let me go with you on this journey. You're like, I'm with you. Right. The same thing is with your stakeholders inside companies. If you say, hey, I understand the problem you want to solve, let me repeat back to you what I think I just heard. Now let's go together, figure out what the root cause of that is so that once we fix it, it doesn't ever happen again. And then let's go solve that. And we're going to do it together. And in fact, here's the keys. I'm putting you in the driver's seat. I'm just going to be the navigator. Right? Like, think about how that feels to be a part of that kind of conversation, and they feel heard, they feel understood, they feel in control of the journey. And when you shift to become the facilitator, the navigator, taking them on that journey, they want to be with you because they see that you're interested in solving their problems, not making their lives easy and not making their lives harder. You're going to make it easier. So I think that's one of the things that we see organizations really struggle with is the people in it have the best intentions, hearts of gold, wanting to help the organization solve problems and really wanting to do good work. But the way they're going about it makes it feel forced onto people, and you're going to hit resistance every step of the way. So for all of our PMO and project people listening out there, if you are hitting resistance, that is on you, not them. Figure out how you can go stand beside them, hear them, support them, show them that you've got their back, and take them on that journey with you.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I just found myself drawn to all of the change management stuff you had there. You had a line in the book, is something along the lines of, give them what they want, not what they need, at least first, right? And I think that's counterintuitive. I think we go, well, I know what they need, Laura.
Oh yeah, I know the medicine.
Yeah, but would you tell us about this idea that it's wise to give them what they want first, and not what they need?
Well, and this weaves in very nicely with the whole change management approach and why that's so important because, so the way I say it in the book and with my mastermind students that I'm always reminding this, then it's PMO, it's all of your audience, PMO and Transformation Leaders all over the world. And I'm always saying them, and now many of them will like start to quote me on it. They're like, you said, Laura, give them what you want, what they want before you give them what they need. Right. And the reason for that is it's not that we don't want to ever get them what we think the right thing is. But the problem is, and as I explained in the book, even if you're right, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Because even if you think you know what they need, and even if that is the thing they need, and you've somehow magically gotten to the root cause because you just know that this is the root cause, then the problem is if they feel like it's being done to them, it doesn't matter. If they don't feel like it's what they need, then it doesn't matter. You have so much better opportunity for success if you go and talk to them about what they know their problems are, right? If they know they have a problem, if they know there's something that's got them stuck, something that's keeping them up at night, fix that first, because then you will build your credibility. They'll know that you have their interest at heart. You're talking about and solving those problems that matter to them most. And then once you've got that trust and that buy-in, they are much more likely to say, hey, since you solved that problem for me, I'm now more interested in hearing what you think is next. But the problem is we spend so much time, oh, well, I know, and I did it. Like, listen, my entire book, Andy, is all of the hard lessons I had to learn, right?
Got a scar here, got a scar here.
Exactly. Don't do this, don't do that, do this instead. That is all from me having to learn the hard way, right? And our students and clients over the years. But first I had to learn and make these mistakes. And I know from experience that after a few times building PMO, I was like, oh, I know what to do. I already know how to do this. Let me just start doing it. And when you don't take the time, that's why after your mindset is clear, the next step is the assess stage. You have to invest time meeting with your stakeholders, doing actual one-on-ones with your executives, doing all kinds of different techniques. You can't just send out a survey. Sure, you could, but you better be following it up with a lot of real conversations with your stakeholders and letting them just talk to you about what is going on. Then when you go into stage 3, define, you actually spend time getting to the root cause. And we teach techniques on how to do that in the book. But the problem is so many people spend so much time putting Band-Aids on symptoms because they think they know what the problem is, and then they just start fixing that. But I can tell you with almost 100% certainty that when an executive complains that projects are taking too long and costing too much, it's usually not because project management is wrong or bad or ineffective. It's usually something that happens at the beginning of the strategy lifecycle, like strategy's not clear, nobody knows what the strategy is, the projects aren't aligned with that strategy, budget's not aligned with those projects, with that strategy, how people are being measured, prioritization, the list goes on and on. And a prioritization is a big one, Andy. Like, how
Yeah.
many times do your clients say to you, oh, well, everything's important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure.
Which means nothing is important. If everything is important, nothing is important because everyone's going to end up with 1/16 of a critical resource on their projects and never be able to get anything done. So it's those are problems that are all happening before projects actually start. So if you set them up for failure, of course they're taking too long and costing too much. But if you could just fix all those front end problems, the root causes, which aren't always at the beginning of the process and aren't always the executive's fault, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
times they don't know
It's
how they're contributing to this.
the seeds are often planted early, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
and,
for
and
sure.
there's so many ideas and frameworks that are so good. And one that stood out to me that I just thought was once again worth the price of the book was the impact communication framework,
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
related to what we've been talking about here too. So,
Yeah.
how do you like to explain that, and why is it so helpful?
Oh, for sure. Okay. So, yeah, and there are, and I guess that's my brain works in like systems and frameworks
Hmm.
and ways to remember things. And I think that's so there's a lot of them in the book.
Hmm.
Techniques that
Yeah.
we've learned, like I learned a communication, how to take people on a change journey. I learned from marketing, like the marketing funnel, for example. And I've learned, different, like the 5 whys is not something that we taught, like that we invented, but it's definitely a really good root cause technique. But the impact communication framework is something that I learned, again, the hard way, how to take people on the journey. And it starts with the 5 steps in the process start with actually really clearly understanding the pain or the challenge, the opportunity that you have that your stakeholders have identified. So this is why it's so important in that assess stage to really hear your stakeholders. And I actually tell people that they need to write down the words that the stakeholder uses, not your paraphrasing of it, not your summary of it, not what you think it means, not the solution you think should be in place, but what they said. Because then the first step in the impact communication framework is going back to the words they used to bring them back to that pain, bring them back to the, hey, remember when you said it was super frustrating? Like when we talk to CEOs, almost every time when we go in to start with a new client and I talk to the CEO, they almost always say, everyone's asking me to make decisions and I don't even have good information to do that. Right. So I'll go back to that. Whatever they said, you wrote it down. That is the pain you start with. So when you start the communication process, you start with the pain. And then you really say, hey, remember when you said X, this problem you had? And you say it in their words. Then the next step is, well, I have a solution for that. And this is where, Andy, a lot of people really focus too much, is that a lot of PMO and project people, we want to geek out on our solution. And we're like, oh, well, I want to put a tool in place and I want to do this and all that. And we're going to have these metrics and, and on and on and on. And that's where you see the stakeholders' eyes start glazing over, right? Like that's the clue that you went too far.
Yeah.
So I like to really, capture it in, this is the solution to solve that pain, but don't geek out on all of the details because they probably don't really care. And if they do, that's probably a separate conversation. And then we switch to outcome. This is the outcome that you will get as a result of putting this solution in place to address that pain. That outcome is kind of the future state. So if they're saying, I don't have any transparency, I don't know what's going on, I have no visibility, right? That's what you'll hear a lot. Things like, I don't have any visibility. Then you say the opposite of that would be giving you that transparency. That's the outcome. Then there's a step to actually articulate it on a broader scale, which is the impact. So it's not just okay, you're going to have better transparency, but so what? So you want to answer the so what. And so you would say, and that's actually there's so many techniques in the book, but that's one that I really like is you answer the so what with the so that. So that what that looks like, so many so's, what that looks like is, what is the broader effect if this solution is in place driving that outcome? And that's the impact on the broader organization. So You go from here's your pain. Remember when you said this, the solution, we've got this solution for you, like, prioritization framework. If the problem is that everything's number one priority, prioritization framework, that will help us make sure that we are focused on the right projects in the right order, thereby driving much faster throughput, better decision making, and all the great impacts that that will have. That's the answer to the so what. And then you want to actually make sure you measure it. And so what usually happens is that in this point in the process, we start with everything being, one, most people just go to solution. They never even go back to like, hey, remember when you said, right?
Okay.
And they never usually go past solution, and all of that communication that here's the outcome you're going to see that's going to be a better world for you, the impact that's going to have on you and the organization, and the better business outcomes we're trying to drive. And then here's how we'll know. And that's what that metric one is. Here's how we will know this is working. And how do you get that metric? This is where a lot of people get stuck, Andy. How do you get that metric? They're like, oh, I don't know. How are we going to measure success? The easiest way is you actually ask the stakeholder, how will we know this is working? Well, they're probably not going to be in that pain that they were in originally, right? So if projects are taking too long and costing too much, and we actually fix the root cause, which is probably somewhere around them trying to shove 10 pounds of projects in a 5-pound bag, right? So fix the fact that prioritization is broken, or nobody is clear on the strategic priorities or the strategy overall, or whatever the problem is. You get to that root cause, you solve that, you will know, because the projects aren't taking as long and they're not as costing as much, right? Like there's easy ways to measure it. You just go back and ask your stakeholders, how will we know we fixed it? And they'll tell you, because they know they're paid. They are not experts in your solution, but they are definitely experts in the pain they're feeling.
Yeah. And there's so many things I love about it, but it's like you said, the challenge or opportunities in their words and the outcome they want. It really reinforces this thing about giving what they want, not what they need. And then you broaden it out. I mean, it's just an example of just one of the things. And there are so many things in the book. I know I've said it a number of times, but also available from your website if they get the book. Would you tell us what they can find on impactenginebook.com, examples of resources available?
Sure. Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. Here's my belief system. Knowledge alone is not power. It's the application of that knowledge where you make a real impact. Yeah. So if you want to, like so many times, and I have been, again, all these hard-earned lessons myself. I mean, have you ever taken a class and been like, oh, this is so great? Or read a book, and you're like, oh, this is so great. And then you get back to doing things you've always done. You kind of forget about it, or you don't take time to implement it. And it's just, and Andy, you and I talked about this before we started recording, but I poured my heart and soul into this because I really want change for people. Yeah. I want the PMO and transformation and strategy delivery people, the project people that are doing this hard work, to have a better outcome. I want them to be able to make a bigger impact. And you can't do that just by knowing things. You have to apply them. So one of the things that we've done with this book is, and this was something that was really important to me, is at the end of every chapter, there is an action-taking resource and steps for you to take. So throughout the whole book, there's so many things where I say, okay, go apply this. Here's the technique for this. This is what you can do. Take this long to do it, like in each of your cycles. And then I want them to actually go download this resource for free to go apply what they've learned. So whether it's a worksheet or like we have a stakeholder engagement plan, we have different resources that are either worksheets for you to fill out as you're brainstorming and thinking it through, or actual templates to go do the step that we've talked about. So it's Excel, it's Word, it's, and then a bunch of PDF worksheets for you to use. Every step in the process has something for you to go do. And so I want you to, there's two steps. There's a think about this differently, or think how you would apply this, and then do. Go download this resource and go take advantage of all of the additional support. So, and all of this, just so you know, Andy, is based on the Impact Engine system that we created. When Kendall was like, go figure out how to codify what you do. And that's a whole training and implementation program that has, if I put everything in that training and implementation program into the book, it probably would have been like 6 books, but at least I give you like enough to go take action. But it's all based on something that we've had students and clients using all over the world for years and years. Our mastermind has been running for years. We have people that have been in it so long that they've now become coaches, coaching other people on how to do it because they've gotten certified. We have a certification around the impact engine system, and they've been certified, which means they've been coached by me personally. They have been trained, they've applied everything they've learned on a huge scale, and they will all say, Laura, like I just heard it in the mastermind last week, Laura, it's like you're always telling us, if you do the work, you will see the results. So that's what this is all about, is just go do it. And you don't have to, it's not overwhelming. It's not going to take you years. The whole idea is quick and I don't want to say easy because, there's no, you're bringing people through change. So it's work. I'm not going to make light of that, but it's doable and you don't have to. I mean, shoot, two of the stories I tell in the book, Andy, are people that have never even managed projects before when I started with them, right? So you don't even have to be an experienced project manager to do this well. You just have to have an eagerness and a desire to learn and be able to trust the process, follow the process, and trust yourself.
Yeah. 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 I love it when you don't just have the words on a page, but the other resources to take action. It's clearly your heartbeat is not just knowledge, but develop the skills and action. And it's clear in the book. How do you, I mean, Laura, you've attained a lot of success. And so you could just rest on what you've learned, but how do you continually develop yourself?
Oh my goodness. Speaking of the mastermind, this just came up last week. And I think we have some different groups. One that's for consultants that think they want to run a company like ours. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Think twice.
Let's start small, right? Because we do a lot. We, with the training and the coaching, the mastermind and the consulting, and we do a lot of different things. The podcast are, all the things, right? So, what we were talking about in this group was how important it is to continue your learning even after you feel you're an expert. And that is the case for me. I'm a consumer of knowledge, and I try desperately. If I apply just like a small percentage of all the things I've learned, then I'm winning because I am constantly listening to podcasts, YouTube videos. I listen to your podcast, for example. I have people on my podcast. We've been running the Impact Summit for years, where all these thought leaders from all over the world, including you were there. We had so many people, share all of these great ideas and insights. So I find that I take advantage of the opportunities where they present themselves, because I do a lot. I do a lot of things, but I travel a lot. I exercise. I have my AirPods in and I'm listening to a podcast or a book, or I'm learning something everywhere I go. I sometimes sign up for courses. I have had coaches and mentors, and I do probably too much. And that was the advice I was giving to my mastermind students, is that there is a threshold where it just becomes so much noise in your head that you're not really able to do anything with it. And then that would cause stress, right? So I think it's important that you take advantage, maybe a little less Netflix, a little bit more of like filling your brain with good stuff, right? Whether it's, or find the times when you're commuting or you're taking a walk or exercising, right? Like put the AirPods in and do something to learn something. But I think it's important that you, focus it on, you want diversity in thought and ideas and different platforms, but also make sure that you're making yourself a list of the things you're actually going to do something with, go take action on what you've learned. So that's my secret, is that I'm learning, Andy, I speak at conferences all the time, and I go listen to what other people have to say. I surround myself with these brilliant people like you all over the world that are learning all these great things, and see if I can at least take one thing from everybody that I've learned something from and go do that. And then make my endless to-do list of all the other things I want to do over time, right? So, but I think that's the secret, is you're never done learning. As long as you have the mindset that I'm going to go learn something and try my best to apply at least some of it, once you see that needle moving, for me, it's an insatiable appetite to just keep learning. And if I could put everything I've learned in books, I'd never do anything.
Right, yeah, for sure.
So much, right?
For sure. But something I observe in you is you care about people a lot. And so it's not just business and transactional. And I feel like sometimes the way I learn something is if I can teach it soon after learning it. And that seems to be you as well. Like
Yeah.
you will consume and learn it and go like, how can I translate that to your mastermind, or how can you translate that
Right.
into, and I think that's something all of us could do, right? They could say, I learned
Right.
something on a podcast, and how could I train some people, or, teach other people on my team about that? That seems to be your mojo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, because I don't know, I had it pretty hard, Andy. Like when I was first starting out, I went through it. Personally, I've been through a lot of stuff. Like life has not been easy for me. And, that's a whole different book and podcast episode, right? But I've had lots of tragedies and traumas and things that I've been through that have been hard. And so for me, I know that, to me, it builds strength to help others.
Yeah.
Right. And I've met people in different walks of life that have been through a lot. And if there's a way that I can share a gift with them to make their path a little bit easier. I mean, I was a single mom when I was doing a lot of this PMO stuff, Andy. Let me just tell you, a toddler and PMOs as a single mom was tough. So, so if I can, help make it easier for the next person so that they can have a balanced life, feel good about the work they're doing, and have the emotional and physical and mental energy to go be their best and do really good work, then we have the potential as a community to truly change the world. Because the people that actually hold the keys to change in their organization are the people that are listening right now. So let's go give them everything they need to be successful. And that's why, like you and I do so much for this community, for free. It's like, just go do something with it. Please go do something with what you're learning, right?
Yeah,
That's how your career really shines.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a great place to end it. For those listening, there's so much wisdom packed into Laura's new book, The Impact Engine. I recommend you add it to your reading list to help increase your ability to drive impact at work and actually at home as well. You can apply it in so many different ways. I put links to the book and the book's website in the show notes for this cast. So, Laura, thank you for joining us on the People and Projects podcast.
Andy, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to all of you future impact drivers out there, let's do this.